Okay. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for coming. Such a hot day. I hear a lot of people are jumping in the river. I hope they're jumping right back out suitably. This is a wonderful occasion, and we have all had many wonderful experiences in South Royalton. Let me tell you about one I had. I used to go up to Arby's Deli and get tuna sandwiches on a regular basis, and then I would go sometimes to Barry's. And at Barry's, there was a wonderful young woman who worked there who often made my tuna sandwiches. And she was there 3 or 4 years, and then she left. I kept going there. And then several years later, she came back, and that was about 8 or 9 years after I first met her. And she was putting my sandwich together and looked around and said, "Do you mind if I ask you a question?" I said, "No." She said, "When are you going to graduate?" So, to me, it was a good indication that I deserved to be an honorary Vermont Law School student. Thank you. And I think today is graduation. So, thank you very much. Thank you, Melissa, your office. Thank you, Tom, administration, for throwing this wonderful party. We really appreciate it. 42 years ago, as I understand it, Vermont Law School was trying to figure out what to call the new clinic it was starting, the first clinic on campus, the civil clinic. And Dean Talbot Debevoise said, according to Ken Kryling, who told me this when I asked him, we want to call it the South Royalton Legal Clinic as a sign of our commitment to the community, that we will provide access to justice to this community and keep delivering it over time. And that commitment has been met. We are in debt to the school, to our funders, to each other for making that happen. When the clinic started, I will be fairly brief about this, but because each of you was here at a different time, you might not know sort of the sweep of this, but it's interesting. When the clinic started, the purpose of it was to give general legal assistance, and so a lot of different cases: housing, Social Security, disability, Medicaid, juvenile was added a little bit later, family, and so on and so forth. Veterans were being worked on as well. And then over time, we began to, as the staff changed, we began to add special projects. In 91, we added a family law project for work in Windsor and Orange courts. In 94, we added children. 98, we added children first. About 95, we added a domestic violence project. 2004, we added an immigration project. In 2014, we added the Veterans Project. And so you're all familiar with those. You worked on many of those types of cases, and you understand what that was all about. We had different things that we did that were very interesting and I think unusual for a law school clinic. We had 2 prisoner projects. Marianne Zaves, who is here with us today, organized one of those at the women's prison in Chittenden. I did one on child support in Rutland. There was a law and social work program that we had, which was innovative and very useful. It was helpful to us. We went to Russia, the staff together. We made 20 trips to Russia to help create Russia's first civil legal clinic, and also one of the first demonstration legal aid programs in all of Russia. That was extremely helpful. We decided that we needed, because of the floor in Pierce House, if you drop something, it would roll across the floor. You might not get it again. So we decided to ask for upgraded facilities, and that ended up being 190 Chelsea Street, the clinics building, which now houses, of course, us and the SRLC. So those are a few of the things that we've been able to do. I can say, off the top of my head, over the years, we were ranked by U.S. Once they started doing the rankings of clinics nationally, we were ranked by U.S. News and World Report, Vermont Law School, South Royalton Legal Clinic, and then generally for clinical education in the top 30, in the top 25, in the top 20, and that was pretty much consistent from the time that they created those rankings. So well, whatever has gone on in the last year or two, it's always worth a look to try to keep our staff going to those conferences around the country. Your work, those of us who all work together over the years, was just fantastic. I can't say enough about it. I was astonished at the level of effort that you put in, at the intelligence that you brought to bear to these things with, fairly minimal training, a few weeks of upfront classroom work, and we threw you into the cases. You really were remarkable. And, from the time of Christine Hoyt was one of my early students. I still remember sitting there in that little shed office that I had and then Alex Banks had. And it's like it's yesterday, interested in family law and now a magistrate for many years in Windsor. And others of you will be on the panel along with Christine, and you can hear what their reminiscences are. Over 1,000 of you, I would say, at this point, have represented thousands of clients and call-ins. Probably 20, 30,000 clients and call-ins. Well, 2 or 3, 2,500 clients probably by now. But many thousands of call-ins. The phone never stopped, and Sharon would be working on that and others as well. You earned millions of dollars for your clients. But I would say equally as important, what you did was to vindicate their rights. People felt that they had been listened to. I cannot tell you how important that became to me over time, that people thought that they were being listened to. And even if they didn't win, they would say, thank you. That was really very important to me to hear that. We had, we had major cases. There were class actions. There were Vermont Supreme Court wins. There were big wins in the U.S. District Court. I really think the most important work we did was the day-to-day, bread and butter, representing individual people and individual cases in the toughest of all forums, family court first, but then in other venues as well, the administrative venues, Social Security, veterans, and across the board through DCF and the children's representation in juvenile cases. That's the work that really made all the difference, I think. An important thing I wanted to note was that in its early days, Vermont Law School really was the face of legal practice by students in the state, and the face of that was the South Royalton Legal Clinic. We introduced Vermont Law School to the legal system, the Vermont Supreme Court, the trial courts, which of course was where we were really headed, federal courts, trial courts. There was some action, an occasional look at a Second Circuit appeal, but all the administrative agencies got to know us and our students, and you did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hearings across the board for all of for our clients over the years. The other thing that I think it's important to reflect on is that Vermont Law School, this is Northern Appalachia for my money. It's a beautiful place, and we live in Windsor County, and it's wealthy in certain parts of it if you go to Woodstock. But if you go back in these hills and cross into the hills, you're in Northern Appalachia, as Winona well knows, and from all of her work with Have Justice. And there's not a lot of free money floating around to throw at a new endeavor like a law school. So the law schools had to raise money over the years through ingenuity. one of the things the South Royalton Legal Clinic was able to do with the collaboration of the administration and the students, many of you actually worked on some of these projects. Michelle Donnelly, for example, met with funders. You actually helped us raise money, and we showed to Vermont Law School that you can operate a clinic on a combination of tuition money and soft money. And that lesson was not lost. And so when the school went to found other clinics about 15 years ago, they looked to us for our experience. And as a member of the faculty once said to me some years back, we never thought you could do this, what the South Royalton Legal Clinic did. So thank you for all your hard work. I just want to go over a couple of names, if I may, and then I'm going to ask Sharon to step up. But there are some people that we really need to recognize. Xander Rubin, first director, Tavian Mayer, who is in the doorway there, waving hello to you. Ready?
Bankruptcy work, Jim.
What's that?
You talked about Northern Appalachia. How much bankruptcy work we did in
Right. Yeah. Lots of bankruptcy, many other case types from the general program. Thank you. And I mean, really, the intake sheet has like 7 or 8 different categories, and each of those are broken down into types of cases. For instance, consumer, bankruptcy, debtor, creditor, contract dispute. So it was a wide variety of case types. Tavian was the first staff attorney. Xander was the first director, followed quickly by Elliot Berg, who went to, by 1986, went to the Attorney General's office. Susan Apel was here, went to the general practice program. We had some, Sharon and I came in 83. We had some attorney transition, and then Len Sandler went to Iowa. He's been there ever since. He was with us a year or two. Judd Burnham, a very recent graduate of VLS, filled in at a critical time. He couldn't even supervise students yet. He had so little experience under the student practice rule, but he helped us, transitioned us so that we could look for an experienced attorney, who was Marianne Zabez, who is here with us today. About 25 years, right? Yeah, okay. And Nina Lloyd was here for a few years doing family law. Alex Banks, whom we lost untimely in 97. In 2017, Alex came in 1995 to head up what Nina did in family law, and then we began Children First and the Domestic Violence Project. We honored Alex's memory last year here in a very well-attended event over in Chase. Arthur Edersheim came at the end of the 90s and has been working straight through till, 5 o'clock today? Yeah. So thank you for all of that. Art headed up, created the Immigration Project, and Aaron Jacobson stepped in to assist him over time and has now moved up to be doing that full time, taking that over. Michelle Donnelly succeeded Alex, who is here with us today, doing DV and Children First. And then we began the Veterans Project in 2014. Caitlin Atwood got that started. There was a little funding delay. Then Laurie Izutsu came in, a wonderful attorney who did a great job getting that program back up and running. She's now a Vermont trial court law clerk in White River. And then Don Hayes has come in most recently. He's picked up the Veterans Project, and that is your staff. So if I may, I'd just like you to give a hand to the current staff of the South Royalton Legal Clinic. And just 30 seconds more, if you'll indulge me. We had wonderful support staff over the years, and their names should be mentioned. Some are no longer with us, but some are in the community, here and there and around. Dot McLaughlin was perhaps the first office manager. Brenda Cohen of Arby's Deli, Roger and Brenda, Arby's, was the second office manager. And then Sharon came. Sharon May, with us today. Sharon was with us until about 1987 and stepped out to work for the state as an investigator. And then we had Joyce Birch, Karen Lyford, and then Sharon came back again. Connie Nyland was a support staff person, and Heidi Bro was another well-known support staff person. And now we have had Amanda Murphy, current here? No. Amanda Murphy, our current wonderful support staff person. So that's the staff of the South Royal Legal Clinic. And Sue Crook, who I never met, but whose name was on the bottom of an interview table we used over in Pierce House. And whenever I would tear another pair of pants on the piece of metal sticking out near the leg, I would look down and go, where is that metal? I've got to get that. And there was a little sign on the bottom, and it said, "This table, property of Sue Crook, Toledo, Ohio." So, I don't know. That's all you need to know about the South Royal Legal Clinic at this point. But it's a wonderful organization, and we've had wonderful people, and thank you for everything you've contributed to it. It is now my pleasure to introduce the aforesaid Sharon Mee. Come on up, Sharon. Sharon and I arrived within days of each other in August of 1983. And we went to work right away and took care of business. And Sharon handles everything extremely well. She's overseen all of the technological changes, the case management software upgrades. There have been a lot of those, of course, if times have changed. Sharon always has been known for a big smile for incoming students, working with them very carefully, incoming faculty, a big welcoming smile. When she left in 1987, can I tell this story? This is sort of what I remember.
Okay.
She went to become an investigator, and because she, I guess, kind of likes film noir, she had a wide-brimmed hat, a 30s suit, and they had bought a car with a running board on it. I thought, where are we? And then she went to be a private eye. And she went down to White River for about 10 years to do that, and had investigated everything that needed to be looked into and cleaned it all up and came back. So, without more, Sharon, our wonderful current office manager since 1997, will talk about Arthur.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. And unlike Jim, I have to use notes, so I'm not even going to try to memorize what I've written. So, and as Jim mentioned, this is Art Edersheim's last day at VLS, and he has been with the clinic for 20 years. And I still remember the day that Art came in for his interview. He was dressed in a three-piece suit, and he did not crack a single smile the entire hour. So after he left, we discussed his qualifications and how he might fit in with us. And his qualifications were superb, without a doubt. But he was too serious, and we thought, he's not going to fit in with us. Well, the joke was on us, because Art turned out to be the most playful and mischievous attorney we have ever had at the clinic. He loves to play practical jokes. So he is an avid dog lover, and students would occasionally, and I do mean occasionally, they would bring their dogs by to meet Art. And the next day, the student would walk in and see a mound of brown. And the student would rush over to clean it up and would exclaim, I can't believe my dog did this. She very well trained. I can't believe my dog did this. And they would rush to clean it up, only to discover that it was plastic. And everybody would laugh, and the person would be very embarrassed. He also would have many a rubber band fight with staff and students. He had rubber band launchers. In fact, one person suggested that we shoot rubber bands at Art today, but I didn't think that was such a good idea. He also had a stash of rubber snakes and spiders, which he would put in students' desks if he became aware that they were particularly averse to those creatures, and always enjoyed watching their reaction. Art also loves to talk. He and I would have many an argument about philosophical or political issues. In fact, Garrett, who you will be hearing from shortly, he would say, "Mommy, Daddy, stop fighting," because we'd get into some pretty heated discussions. But all joking aside, Art is a very serious attorney who has always cared very deeply for his clients. He was the project attorney for the Vermont Immigrant Assistance Program, also known as VIA, which was started in 2003. Through that project, Art represented countless immigrants filing for asylum and those seeking protection under the Violence Against Women Act. As of this year, VIA has represented clients from 68 different countries. In addition, beginning in 2005, Art traveled once a month to the Vermont Refugee Resettlement Program and spent the day providing legal information to refugees. He also worked with the Vermont Center for Crime Victim Services and other service organizations to develop the necessary protocols and services for human trafficking victims. Later, Art began the collaborative relationship the clinic has with the University of Vermont's Behavioral Therapy and Psychotherapy Center to help torture survivors file asylum applications. That program still exists today. Art taught immigration law at VLS for several years. He organized many trainings for court advocates and attorneys and gave numerous public presentations on both domestic violence and immigration law. Art is a humble man, though, and he would never speak of his noteworthy accomplishments. But whenever Art was presented with a gift from an immigration client, he would show us the cotton shirt that was 3 sizes too big, or the beautiful wall hanging that he proudly displayed in his office. He's also an extremely generous man. If his clients brought in gifts of food, he would share the culinary delights with everyone. This was even true of chocolate, which is Art's favorite food in the entire world. And during the dog days of summer, Art bought ice cream sandwiches for all the staff and students. And in fact, he did that just 2 days ago when it was so hot. Art received high praise from our student clinicians over the years. Just a quote from a few. Art enjoys teaching as much as engaging in office levity. Art was absolutely great, funny, expert, and wonderful to learn from. Art is very supportive of his students and is rather like a friend. I think this professor knows everything. It was awesome that he had answers to any question you could throw at him. And finally, Art is funny and witty, an always kind man. That is an extremely important quality in my book. Art consulted with many individuals who called or walked into the clinic seeking legal information. In fact, just last month, a woman came into the clinic looking for Art. He had met with her years ago. We tried to explain that Art worked on a part-time basis and suggested she meet with someone else. But she insisted on talking to Art because he had been so helpful and informative. This did surprise me a bit because 10 years earlier, in a moment of frustration, after meeting with her for over an hour, he said to her, "Despite what you've seen on Law and Order, the real world doesn't work that way." But yet, that woman didn't want to speak with anyone else in the office a full decade later. That speaks volumes. Well, I am not going to speak volumes. I think I have said enough. Perhaps I have said too much. As Art told me just last week, Sharon, no one has ever complained about a speech being too short. But I have to conclude by saying how much I have enjoyed working with you, Art, over the years. You have been a friend, a confidant, and have lent me many good books. All of us at the clinic will miss you greatly. It has been a privilege and a lot of fun to work with you. Assuredly, our office will not be the same without you. So there's a little gift over here. Oh. Oh, here. To thank you for all of your hard work. So now I'm going to turn the microphone over to Dean Tom McHenry.
Sharon, thank you so much. Welcome, everybody, and I'll try not to stand between you and our great panel that's coming up. I think some of the accomplishments of the clinic are going to be profiled in our panel. So I'm going to try and take a little bit of Art's advice, and there's a famous story about the guy who's going to introduce somebody and say a few words at a dinner, and he says to his wife, well, what should I speak about? And she says, you should speak for about 2 minutes. So I'll try to stick with that. I actually started my first brush with the law was working as an intake counselor a couple afternoons a week in New Haven, Connecticut when I was in college at the legal aid office. And I can remember very well that one of the first phone calls I got was from a lady who was having a dispute with someone about it. And I was supposed to look at their eligibility criteria and everything, and seemed like a very nice person on the phone, and I took down the relevant information. And then about an hour later, I got a call from the person who was on the other side of the dispute wanting the legal aid office to represent them as well. And I remember going into the legal aid attorney and saying, well, we've got both people on the side of the dispute. They both seem very nice. Can we represent both of them? And learning the lesson that you only represent one person when you're an attorney. It's your client. Tavian knows that well. So my pleasure is to be able to say just a few quick words about Jim May. And as you know, you just heard, he's been working with the South Royalton Legal Clinic since 1983. So I don't think it would be possible to do justice in a couple of minutes to that career, but just a very few couple of highlights. Jim was a Vermont legal aid attorney in the early 1980s before coming to the South Royalton Legal Clinic. I am informed that he knows personally almost every legal aid attorney in the state of Vermont and some of the surrounding states that has practiced here. His areas of expertise included disability law and bankruptcy, but as manager of the clinic, there is almost no area of the law that he did not immerse himself in. In his spare time, we know he spent some time in Russia, and where's lovely Natalia, so we can wave to Natalia, who I think was filming some of this. Jim also is a great hiker and has climbed most of the peaks in the White Mountains. One thing that I wanted to mention, just as a sort of a follow-on to Jim's incredibly great work, is that we are going to be opening an office in Burlington, Vermont, starting on the 1st of September. It will be an immigration clinic. Will also serve as a beachhead for us for marketing and recruiting, as John Miller, who's right there, knows. We were up there on Wednesday of this week looking at the office. It's great. It's located on St. Paul Street, just a half a block south of Main Street. And we'll get to put a big Vermont Law School logo up there. So, Jim, very much a matter of your tradition and commitment that we're able to do that. I spoke with Erin Jacobson, who unfortunately couldn't be with us today, and one of the things she wanted me to highlight on behalf of everybody who's worked at the clinic over the years, students and staff, is just how grateful they are to Jim for the guidance and support that they've received in their legal work, and that he will serve as a model to them as they go forward. Our legal clinic here was just a tiny little seedling when Jim came, and it's now an immensely strong tree. It's a well-established presence in the state of Vermont, in the county of Windsor, and outside of Vermont as well. And that's something of which, Jim, you can be justifiably proud. So I'm greatly looking forward to our panel presentation in a few minutes, educating some of you about that wonderful history. And Jim, where are you? Can you come up here for a moment? Right there, right in front of me. We have for you, following up on our tree analogy from this. So this is a fruit from the tree that you helped to grow. Thank you very much. Jim May. And I'm really pleased, you can't go anywhere, Jim. I'm really pleased to say that you get to come up here and introduce our panelists. So we're going to do that.
My pleasure.
Jim, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Much appreciated. So we have a wonderful panel today. Dana Christensen, and I think we'll just ask you to come up and speak as we have been doing, right? Unit Director, Brooklyn Legal Services, is that correct? Okay. Yeah, okay, all right. Bound to be a legal aid lawyer, wanted to do the work. Serious of purpose is my recollection of your demeanor and your time at the clinic. And thank you for joining us today all the way up from Brooklyn. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having this and inviting me up here. I spent a lot of time writing a speech, but if you go in front of the court, you know you don't read something word for word, and I'm inspired by, I don't know, just being here with you all and hearing about the history of this clinic. It's been beautiful to be here on this summer day in South Royalton. I've been walking around. I went up Kent's Ledge, and was reminded of this beautiful time in my life here at this law school, but also the restlessness I felt through most of it. I was really searching for, did I really want to be an attorney if this is what it's going to be? But I had a hunch that the South Royalton Legal Clinic would help me out in that. And just, as Jim May said, I treated it like a full-time job. I came in at 9 a.m. and left at 5. We had a desk, and it was the old school. There's two types of legal aid clinics. There's the kind that look like the center now that are nice and professional-looking. Clients go in there, and they think, this is a law office. And then there's the legal aid offices that look like the building across the street with the political posters from different eras and pictures and bric-a-brac, and you go into the kitchen and there's mugs that people have abandoned, like Joe's mug, Marilyn's mug. Who's Marilyn? You know, that I've worked in both types of legal clinics, and I feel at home at both, but I definitely have the soft spot for the first kind of legal clinic, like South Royalton Legal Clinic. And from that time, I went on to become an unpaid intern, then an AmeriCorps intern, eventually became a staff attorney. Anyone who's graduated in the past 15 years knows what I'm talking about. It's a hustle anywhere you go. And I just finished up my first month as a supervising attorney, so that's like brand new. Kind of figuring out what type of leadership, what leadership's going to be like in this new chapter in my career. And being up here and thinking about South Royalton Legal Clinic and how that shaped my career, I can't help but think of Alex Banks and what he did. I just think of his humility and how overlooked that is in leadership in general, but there's something about the practice of legal aid that makes you humble. Like, there's just anyone who's doing the day-to-day work, when you don't have a sexy case or anything like that, but you're with clients in their lowest parts of their life, moments of crisis, really, and you're helping them through it. And he had that humility and kindness throughout his whole career. And I hope to carry some of that with me I used to do DV and family law work, and that is some of the most challenging work one can do. But you have to be there with the client in order to have them trust you and to get the results that you need. And he had that in spades, so I'm incredibly indebted to his example. And I hope it inspires other people to do that work. I realize I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but every legal aid group I've worked at, we've been understaffed. There's never enough funding to do the work that needs to be done to serve our communities, much less, benefits. We're fighting for that too, and competitive salaries for the people that are doing it, so we can, especially a place like Brooklyn, afford to be in the communities that we serve. But I encourage everyone, if you can, to support South Royalton Legal Clinic. I know I'm only giving $15 a month, but it pays for the postage, I hear, so every little bit helps. But also support wherever you live, your local legal aid groups there, because there's always people that need your help. Volunteer, donate, call politicians and say, hey, stop cutting our funding. Can you give us a bit more instead? Because we are on the ground. We're the monkey wrenches in the eviction mills, in the foreclosure mills, in the prison mills. We're doing that work, and I hope that we continue to be supported wherever we are. And thank you for being here, supporting us, and here's to 40 more years at this clinic.
Thanks, Dana. Again, thanks for coming up. Are there any current students of the South Royalton Legal Clinic around? All right. Raise your hands, all right? Let's see. All right. So give Dana a call when you're looking for work. She will always have something for you to do, I can guarantee you. Winona Ward, well known to, I think, everyone here, knew what she wanted to do when she was at the South Royalton Legal Clinic, too, much like Dana. She had it in her mind, and I remember interviewing her for a Rubin Fellowship during, I guess, between her first and second year. And she already had mapped out what she wanted to do. An amazing story. If you haven't heard it, maybe she'll share it with you, where she's coming from with this. Have Justice Will Travel is her organization, and I Can Help You is, I think, her motto. Come on up.
Can I stand behind the
Go wherever you like. Yeah.
Sorry, but I'm used to a podium when I speak, so. It's absolutely wonderful to be here with all of you this afternoon to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the South Royalton Legal Clinic at Vermont Law School. Although I graduated in 1998 from Vermont Law School, I was one of those students who, once they got a taste of the clinic, they didn't want to leave. I spent the first semester of my third year at the clinic as a full-time clinician and the last semester of my third year as a work-study volunteer clinician. But then, as it turned out, I continued on as a clinician representing clinic clients until spring 2000, when I finally became a licensed attorney in Vermont. I was fortunate during that time to be chosen as a fellow and funded by the Equal Justice Works Foundation. But needless to say, the mentoring I received from the attorneys at the clinic was priceless. When I told Jim May that I was going to start my own legal nonprofit to provide free legal services for victims of domestic and sexual violence, I remember him saying to me, "Oh, so you're going to become an administrator?" And I answered, "No, I want to be a lawyer. I want to represent clients in the courtroom." but he was right in many ways. The Vermont nonprofit I started, Have Justice Will Travel, is organized much like Jim had organized the clinic, and how it was then and how it still is today. Have Justice provides in-home consultations, transportation, and free legal services for low-income battered women and their children. When men and dads who have been in abusive situations call, we also help them. And what I like about this model is that we are able to sit in these clients' kitchens where they are comfortable, analyze their legal situation, and discuss their options. We talk with them as a peer and explain in detail what will happen in the courtroom, just as I did when I was at the South Royalton Legal Clinic. We do provide transportation to and from court hearings, for social service appointments, and for court-ordered supervised visits for children. But the Have Justice Will model really is a holistic model to help clients. And by holistic, I mean we look at all their needs, and we look at the whole person, not just their legal needs. We provide referrals to social service agencies and provide some social services also. For years, Have Justice has received over 1,200 calls a year from Vermonters seeking legal representation. And the outcome of this multi-service model has been that less than 10% of the women we have worked with return to live with other abusers or go on to other abusive relationships. What this means is that children have learned that it's not okay for one parent to hit the other parent. We have begun to stop the generational cycle of abuse. Many of the policies that we have at Have Justice and the manner in which we work for and with clients is based on the mentoring I had and what I learned at the clinic. One of the most important mentors I had was Alex Banks, especially when it came to how DV affects children. And although he is no longer with us, the work he did to help women and children lives on today through those of us who have gone on to follow in his footsteps. The first clinic case I actually had about domestic violence, however, was with attorney Marianne Zavez, who guided me through responding to a divorce where the batterer was trying to take the disabled woman's home away from her. But we were able to stop that when we found out that he had a sizable pension that he did not realize was part of the marital assets. And even still today, in fact, I talked to Art earlier today when I got here, whether it's Art or Aaron Jacobson, whenever I have an immigration question, especially where domestic violence is involved, I talk with them. Michelle Donnelly and I now work on a number of Orange County family law cases together. And today, I feel that the most important thing I learned from not only my time as a clinician, but from working closely with the clinic for the past 20 years, especially with Sharon Me, is that when you are working with people who are affected by trauma, is that you listen closely to what they are saying. You talk in a language they can understand, and you let them know that you will be there with them through this traumatic time. So in my work, I am glad to say that I can say to Vermont women, I have been where you are. I got out. Come walk with me. Not only will I help you legally to get out, but I will help you become a strong and independent woman for yourself, for your children, and eventually for your children's children. So each day I work toward a future where the generational cycle of abuse is a thing of the past, and where the services the South Royalton Legal Clinic and Have Justice Will Travel provide are no longer needed. Thank you very much. If you're interested in any brochures from Have Justice, they're down here on the table.
Thanks, Winona. Here they are. Winona, interestingly, she's one of the few people you'll meet who was featured as an attorney on the cover of the American Bar Association Journal. Remember that photograph? Yes. Winona? Where were you kneeling? In front of a semi... Right. So that's part of Winona's history that I recall this well, even from your Rubin interview, that when she was driving with her husband Harold for years, she would hear on the CB radio people discussing the need for representation in a case they had back where they came from. Pretty interesting. Christine Hoyt was one of my first students. She might have been one of my very first native Vermonter. Is that correct? Were you here?
I was living in Vermont, but I confess I'm actually from New Jersey.
Oh, okay. Well, it'll qualify for that.
Transplant. I'm an official transplant.
Oh, you transplanted at that point. Okay. So Christine, I recall being super bright. Might have had something to do with a law review. I'm trying to remember at that time. Is that correct? Right. An officer, a leader, a director, whatever. Yeah, okay. So law review staff. And she was interested in family law then. We did family law cases. I was very impressed with her discipline and organization. And she has been through practice and now has been a magistrate for some years with the Vermont Superior Court system in White River Junction. And she will talk to you about her time at the clinic and also maybe share a little bit about what you do now.
Thanks. I'm going to take Winona's lead and use the podium as well. And unfortunately, I did not memorize my speech. I graduated from Vermont Law School in 1986. That's a long time ago. As Jim pointed out, I currently sit as a magistrate in the Vermont Superior Court in the Family Division. I actually sit in both Windsor and Windham counties. I hear cases involving parentage, parental rights and responsibilities, spousal maintenance, and child support. While I was a student at Vermont Law School, I was fortunate enough to participate in the South Royalton Legal Clinic. It has been very interesting to take this opportunity to reflect on my time here, and particularly at the clinic. And in thinking about it, I think it has given me a unique perspective, particularly when I have clinicians and supervising attorneys appear before me. In thinking about my experience at the clinic, I can say that it was one of the most important parts of my legal education. While my classes, case law professors all provided crucial legal information and assisted me in developing critical reasoning skills, my time at the clinic presented the challenge of putting that legal theory into practice. Let me be honest, it wasn't the easiest thing I've ever done. While I enjoyed contact with real people, moving from hypotheticals in case law to real-life issues and human beings with emotions and questions took quite an adjustment. Appearing in front of a judge in court, to me, was intimidating and unpredictable. I try not to give that experience to the students who come in front of me now. After 30 years, I don't remember everything that happened to me during my law school years, but I do remember the name of the first client that I helped at the South Royalton Legal Clinic. I remember her name, that she was asking for a divorce, that she had health issues, that she was in an unhealthy relationship, and she had no money. That case made quite an impression on me and is probably part of the reason that I ended up in family law today. I also remember the guidance of Jim May and then Elliot Berg, and the compassion shown to me by Sharon Mee, whose emotional support meant a lot to an insecure law student. Thank you. All of these experiences were part of my successful education. When I was first appointed in 1998, I had a young daughter, and I had the good fortune to job share with another magistrate. And I would just like to mention that she is the recipient of this year's Vermont Law School Distinguished Alumni Award, Patricia Whalen. I was hoping she'd be here today. I hear she'll be here tomorrow. Patty is an amazing jurist and a wonderful human being, and I learned a lot from her when we were both magistrates for the Vermont Superior Court. Patty went off to work on international legal issues, and I took over her half and started full-time. But I wanted to congratulate Patty on her accomplishments and her award. Over the past 20 years, I've had Vermont Law School students, along with their supervising attorneys, appear before me, as I mentioned. They represent children, as we all know, in contentious cases. They represent victims of domestic violence, veterans, and disabled individuals. I think there's a theme coming here, because I did want to mention that I had been particularly impressed with the compassion, energy, and skill of supervising attorney Alex Banks. From the court's perspective, Alex served the students, the clients, and the judiciary very well. He was on committees designed to improve the judiciary, and he was a good friend to the Guardian Ad Litem program. And from a purely selfish standpoint, as a magistrate, when I saw his name on the docket, it always made me happy, because it meant that I would have an experienced, reasonable, and empathetic attorney in front of me. Alex gently guided the students while being a model of civility and also representing the best interests of children. Alex's shoes are big ones to fill, but the clinic continues to provide students with excellent court experience and supervision, which is so important to a complete legal education. From the South Royalton Legal Clinic experience inserts humanity that sometimes lacks in academics. Working with real clients and real-life issues impresses upon all of us the gravity of the work that we do and the need to be dedicated, competent, and compassionate. I am proud to be a part of the Vermont Law School community and a past clinician at the South Royalton Legal Clinic. I'm excited to be a part of this special celebration, and I appreciate the invitation to address you today. Thank you.
We remembered Alex a year or so ago, and his name has been mentioned here several times, and perhaps to share a brighter moment in his life. Sharon told a story that Alex told on himself about when he was this was at the memorial service last January, when he was in Alaska, down on the docks. Back when he went there. He would go there on occasion, but it was some years ago. But he couldn't figure out why people kept coming up to him asking him for legal advice. He was just there visiting from Vermont, and he was cutting up fish. He didn't understand what the connection was. And finally someone said something to him about his hat, and his hat said Vermont Trial Lawyers Association. So a great story. A.J. Rubin was with us. He is now a staff attorney, directing staff attorney with Disability Rights Vermont. And what I remember about A.J. In the clinic was that he was always willing to challenge us as we stood at the head of the classroom during the upfront 3-week training program on anything that we said that he had a problem with respect to, is this system fair? Economically or politically? Does it work? You seem to be implying that it works. I don't think so. AJ.
Hi, thanks for having me here today. So the theme that everyone's talking about is how important Jim and Zavez and the staff, the support staff at the clinic was for those of us who went through the program. And I'm just going to reiterate that it was the most important part of law school for many of us. The clinic taught us how to do the work and why we did the work. And Jim and Marianne especially showed us how to do the work in a compassionate and professional manner. And it's absolutely true to say that my friends who went through the clinic and we remember Jim and Marianne every day when we practice. And I try to hold myself up to the standard that they set. And that standard is one of compassion, one of professionalism, one of diligence, and one of making it a livable lifestyle. I mean, the things in the clinic when I was there in 1991 that were so special included the Mr. Coffee Pot, which didn't have coffee in it. It had mint tea. And so we were drinking mint tea all day long. And that was part of the general vibe of the place. Many of you might be practicing lawyers right now, and you might work in law firms or organizations that are pretty high pressure and pretty dog eat dog and pretty unforgiving and pretty much focused on money and winning and billable hours. And that was not what the clinic taught us about. The clinic taught us the exact opposite. Jim and Marianne taught us to drink the mint tea and calm down. I mean, it might have been better if there was some, acid in the tea, but there wasn't. Speaking of LSD, so there's Alex Bank stories going all around here. I had the privilege of recommending Alex to admission to the federal bar in Rutland, Vermont. Maybe it was Judge Sessions at that point. And I remember that day very well because I was in the federal courthouse with Alex and a bunch of other people different lawyers were trying to get admitted to the federal bar. And the thing starts at 1 o'clock and we're there at 5 of 1. And right before 1 o'clock, the chambers in the back of the bench, the door opens. And my friend Eric Fitzpatrick, who was a VLS grad, really smart guy, was clerking for the federal judge, but a big Grateful Dead fan. He comes out of the door like 30 seconds before 1, and he looks at me and he says, AJ, do you know what happened just now? And I'm like, no, and this is in the federal courthouse. And he says, Jerry Garcia just died. And I am dumbstruck, having been to a lot of shows and taken a lot of acid. And Alex is sitting next to me, and he was also a Dead fan, so we are looking at each other, we are shell-shocked. And then the judge comes out, and there's like 7 people who are trying to get admitted with 7 different, sponsoring lawyers. Of course, he picks me first. He's like, Mr. Rubin, do you have a motion for the court? I can't talk. I'm in shock. Alex is like, say something, get up. I'm trying to get... So, but Alex was one of the people who the clinic, attracts and retains, just like art. These are people who, like many of us, have chosen to give their lives for the struggle of humanity, the struggle to make fairness, to create justice. Like Jim said, I was always upset with the law school because I always felt like it tried to teach you that the law works. You study these cases, these anomalous cases, because they're trying to impress upon you that generally it works. And these anomalous cases are examples of how it didn't work. But if you work in the clinic every day, that's not true, right? You know that poor people get hurt because the system is built for rich people, rich white men. And having a place to, rich white straight men, cis men. But it cannot be overstated how important it is to have in a law school a safe environment where people like us, who care more about our fellow humans than we do about our own ability to get another, summer house or another fancy German car. It's important to have a place like that to go and get involved and learn the skills and the work and get the support. And that support has never left, me. I'm a person who reaches out to find other people in my community who care and who struggle and who face the vicarious trauma that those of us who worked at the clinic faced every day. So it just cannot be said, in my mind, how important it was to learn from the people at the clinic, the support staff at the clinic. I mean, that can't be overstated. How many lawyers are just pains in the neck when it comes to how they treat non-lawyer professional, non-lawyers in their office. I hear that all the time from support staff in other offices. The clinic taught you not to do that. Right? They taught you that everybody is really important, especially the people who don't have the degrees, because they probably have better common sense than we do. So, I could go on and on and on about why it was so important and how I think back. I've been supervising a staff of about 15 people for about 17 years now, and there's not a day goes by that I don't do something to supervise my staff that Zavez and Jim May taught me how to do. And many of the people I work with have been working with me for more than 15 years, and I attribute that to the training I got at the clinic. It was the most important thing. I'm so grateful for the experience. The two of you and Art, you are warriors for justice. My heart goes out to you. You've helped so many people, clients and staff and your colleagues. And I just say the same. Here's to 40 more years. It's the most important thing we got going in this law school. Thank you so much for letting me be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for those kind sentiments, and to all who have spoken so far. It's really, it's something we're thankful for. It's something that means something to us. We don't hear it every day. We didn't hear it in the clinic every day. It's great to see everyone here, and especially Garrett Baxter, who's the last member of our panel. Garrett is the regional senior staff attorney for the Municipal Assistance Center of VLCT, the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. He's been doing that for a long time. Serious of purpose as well at the clinic, except when he wasn't. He holds the record of a very, very solid student, always there, always working, been able to keep doing that for a long time. He can hit a wiffle ball farther than anyone I have ever seen. I remember it because it was my pitch that he hit. We were behind Pierce House, and I think that ball went over the fence into the yard back there. And today, when we just met, he asked if we wanted to throw a little ball afterwards, but no. So, Garrett, come on up and say hi.
Sorry, I'm a podium person as well. So much so that I actually got my office to buy one so that when I do workshops, I have a little portable podium I can take and put on tables. So, something about the sense of security behind here. So thank you, Jim, and good afternoon, everyone. First off, I just want to say what a privilege it is for me to have been invited here today to help celebrate the Legal Clinic's 40th anniversary. And to be here to join in honoring the generous giving of self exemplified by Jim May and Art Edersheim over the course of their careers to their clients, their students, VLS, their community, and for their overriding sense of fairness and belief in equal access of justice for all. Frankly, I'm a little surprised I'm here, though I do it quite frequently for my job. I'm not the best public speaker in the world, which Art learned firsthand 2 years ago when he sat through my presentation on conflicts of interest for municipal officials. I should explain I'm employed as senior staff attorney for Vermont League of Cities and Towns. The League for short, which now that I say it out loud makes it sound a lot cooler than it is. We're a nonprofit organization created by and serving all Vermont's municipalities. My department, the Municipal Assistance Center, provides local officials with the training, education, and legal assistance they need to carry out their statutory roles and responsibilities. The way I like to explain it to people is that we're kind of like a MASH unit for municipal legal services. While we do provide some direct legal services such as reviewing ordinances and policies, we don't actually represent cities and towns in court. That'd be impossible. There's some 250 municipalities in the state, and we only have 3 attorneys. So we focus instead on where we can make the biggest difference, and that's being there to answer questions from select board members, town clerks, treasurers, zoning administrators, and others about how the law works, and more often than not, how it doesn't, with the understanding that what we're doing is really giving citizens the educational resources they need for self-governance. I was just telling two of my colleagues the other day how nervous I was about giving this 5-minute speech today when they reminded me that I just spoke for an hour and a half in Derby, Vermont this past Wednesday on conducting effective local tax appeal hearings. But that's different, I told them, because these people, this clinic, mean a lot to me. Not that tax appeal hearings don't have a special place in my heart as well, but so I started out at the legal clinic as a work study student. I don't remember exactly when that was, but I do remember the exact date when I was a student clinician. That was in the fall of 2002, and I know that for certain because I still have my South Royalton Legal Clinic student manual. And that's why I have back problems carrying that around. That was about some 17 years ago now. Looking back, it doesn't seem that long ago, but I can't ignore the evidence. The most irrefutable of which is that Sharon's little boy, Selden, who used to hang out with me in the office and play wiffle ball with Jim and I behind the clinic, is now all grown up and I'm told pursuing a degree in sports management. Hard to believe. When I arrived on campus back in 2000, I already believed in the legal clinic's mission, and that's what drew me there. Within its walls were like-minded people, but these were people who were actually putting their beliefs of social justice into everyday practice. The legal clinic is where I found my professional role models. They represented who I wanted to become, and the clinic, which stood then, as it does today, as a symbol of hope to those who can't otherwise afford any, gave me faith as a law student that I too may find an occupation as an attorney that I can be proud of. Reflecting on my time at the clinic and how it influenced me, I keep coming back to the people who gave it life. For me, at my time, it was Jim, Art, Alex, Sharon, Marianne, and Heidi. It seemed appropriate that the legal clinic had its offices in an old house back then, because I always thought of it as a home and the people inside it as family. Jim was the principled, encouraging, tough but fair father figure who taught me that it wasn't enough just to care, you also needed to know how to put that caring into action. Sharon, to me, was the matriarch of the clinic, the one who knew the answers to the questions of where and when and how, without whom the clinic couldn't operate, and who represented the moral center, its heart. Art and Alex were like brothers, one playful, the other serious, but both equally extremely dedicated men of conscience. Marianne and Heidi were sisters. Marianne laid back and affable, seemingly keeping to herself because she was always working so hard for others. Heidi, sociable and confident, a great judge of character and situations. And what I remember most is seeing how they all cared for one another every time they interacted. And it was those close relationships and that shared singularity of purpose of helping others that forged my own baseline of expectations for both the type of career and the type of workplace that I wanted and eventually found for myself at the League. So for that and so much more that you've given me, I'd like to say a long overdue thank you and congratulations.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Garrett. It really is, it's impressive to look back and see the scope of what you have all done on the panel, the different eras, the different times, the different experiences, and it's gratifying. We're humbled by what you've said. We thank you so much. Thank you again to everyone, Melissa and the office, the clinic staff, administration, for allowing us to put this together, for putting it together yourselves. I would leave this thought with you. The future is very much in your hands. Hey, turn on the TV. Everybody's running for president these days, right? That's filtered down in the society. Well, it's happening everywhere. The future of the South Royalton Legal Clinic may well be partly or to a great extent in your hands. If you want to keep supporting it, as I think you do, Dana told us how she's doing it. Other people are doing it in other ways. And when they meet clinicians in court or whatever, promoting this form of education and this opportunity to have these experiences, then let the school know about it. Tell the administration, tell the clinic. Don't be a stranger in the clinic. It's an excellent staff. They're looking forward to having you come in and share your ideas. Times change. The public fisc does not open very much for academic institutions anymore, particularly in Vermont. Money has to be raised. We need ideas. We need commitment. We need you coming back to Vermont Law School, if only by phone and email, and sharing your ideas about what the clinic can do going forward. I know John Stoner's done it. I know Wendy Rausenberger has done it. Faces from the past. Oh, by the way, if you want to see Wendy hanging from living in a tree, you can see one of the pictures around here from her year. But that's just a little reminiscence of her class. So thank you so much. Best wishes for a wonderful summer, and don't be strangers. Bye.